He was gone. We cried. We healed. But now he's back. Or is he? Heartland Season 19 opens with a moment no one expected. Borden appears again. For Amy, it was like time stopped. For fans, it was both a miracle and a mystery. So what really happened in Episode 1 and what does it mean for the future of the Fleming Borden family? Let's break it down. **** To understand the shock of Borden's return in Season 19. We need to go back to where it all began, and where it all broke. Was never just a love interest. He was the heart of Heartland, standing by Amy through every storm, every tragedy, and every triumph. From a troubled teen with a rough past to a devoted husband and father, became one of the most beloved characters in the entire series. So when Season 14 opened with the heartbreaking news of his sudden death after being shot at the end of Season 13, fans were devastated. Amy was crushed, Lindy was left without a father, and something in the Heartland home felt forever changed. For many longtime viewers, that episode felt like a turning point. The tone of the series shifted. The story focused more on grief, healing, and moving forward. Amy, who had always leaned on had to become a new version of herself, quieter and alone. We watched her go through painful moments, from breaking down in the barn to standing tall for her daughter. But even in the sadness, Heartland gave us something to hold on to. Amy's resilience. She didn't run from the pain. She faced it, and slowly, she began to live again. Over the next few seasons, we saw Amy take on new challenges, raising Lindy, working with horses, and finding peace in her own way. But one thing remained the same. Was always with her, not in person, but in the memories. In the way she smiled when talking about him. In the way she looked at Lindy and saw pieces of him. And for viewers, that connection made the show feel real. It wasn't a fast recovery, it was honest, it was raw. By the end of Season 18, Amy had come a long way. So had Lindy. The little girl who once cried for her dad was now growing into her own person, brave, kind, and curious. The Heartland family had slowly stitched itself back together. Jack, Lou, Tim, they all helped Amy carry the weight. But even with the healing, there was always one empty space. And no one expected that space to be touched again. That's why Season 19 Episode 1 hit so hard. The episode starts slow. Familiar shots of the ranch. Morning light, Amy getting Lindy ready for the day? It feels like just another peaceful morning until it doesn't. Suddenly, there's a shift. A scene that changes everything. Appears. Standing there, silent, still looking exactly the way we remember him. The moment is brief but powerful. Is it a dream, a memory, or something more? This is the moment the episode hinges on, and the moment we'll explore more deeply in the next section. But before we get there, it's important to remember that Ty's return, whether real or imagined, carries years of emotion behind it. For Amy, for Lindy, and for us, the viewers, we've lived through their loss. Now we're facing something even more complicated. What if he's not truly gone? The moment Ty appears in Season 19, Episode 1 is brief, but it hits like a storm. It happens when Amy is alone. She steps outside the barn, the wind is soft, the horses are quiet, and there he is, Ty, standing a few feet away, watching her. No words, just presence. For a second, it feels real. Too real. Amy freezes. Her face softens, her eyes fill with tears. Then he's gone. Like a shadow that passed through the light. So what really happened here? Was this a ghost, a dream, or something deeper? Let's look at the possibilities. The first and most obvious explanation is that this was a dream. Heartland has used dream sequences before, especially during emotional transitions. Amy has often processed her grief through dreams. In earlier seasons, when she was in pain, Ty would sometimes appear in her mind as a way of helping her through it. So, on the surface, this could easily be one of those moments, Amy dreaming of Ty, because something inside her needed to see him again. But there's something different about this one. The way the scene is shot, the lighting, the silence, the slow motion feels more grounded, more intentional. It's not hazy or blurred like a dream. It's crisp, real, like Ty actually came back. That brings us to the second theory. A memory flashback. Some fans think the scene might not be happening in the present at all. Instead, it could be Amy remembering a quiet moment with Ty from years ago. Maybe it's a part of her healing, remembering the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel safe. If it's a memory, it would explain the emotional weight of the scene without changing the storyline. But then. There's the third, and most powerful theory, a spiritual return. Heartland isn't a fantasy show, but it has always respected the emotional and spiritual bonds between people, especially family. The land, the horses, the people there, all connected. And sometimes, the show leans into moments that feel larger than life. Ty's sudden appearance could be one of those moments. Not a ghost, not a dream, but a feeling. A presence. Something Amy sensed in her soul, not her eyes. If you watch the scene closely, you'll notice Amy doesn't scream, or panic, or even speak. She just stares, quiet, almost accepting. As if deep down, she knew he'd show up. Maybe she's finally ready to say goodbye in a new way. Or maybe she just needed to feel him once more to keep moving forward. Then there's another possibility, and it's one some fans are quietly hoping for. What if Ty's not really gone? It's unlikely, of course. The show was clear about his death. There was a funeral, a grieving process, seasons of pain. But still, this is TV, and in television, no door is ever fully closed. Could the writers be testing something? A multiverse? Angle? A hidden twin? A faked death? Most likely not. Heartland has always stayed grounded in reality. But still, the moment was delivered in a way that leaves room for just enough doubt. Enough to stir conversation. Enough to bring back hope. And that's the genius of it. Whether Ty truly returns or not isn't the point, at least, not yet. What matters is what his presence means. For Amy, for Lindy, and for the legacy of the show. Ty's return, in any form, reminds us that grief is never clean. Healing isn't a straight line. Sometimes, the people we've lost show up when we least expect them, not to stay, but to help us keep going. This scene opens the door for all kinds of storytelling paths. Maybe Amy starts seeing him more often in dreams. Maybe Lindy feels his presence too. Maybe Ty becomes a part of their lives in a new way, not in body, but in spirit. In the next section, we'll explore Amy's reaction to this moment. She breaks down, why she cries, and what her tears really mean. Because when Ty shows up, even for a second, everything changes. And Amy's heart tells the whole story. Amy doesn't speak when she sees Ty. She doesn't move much, but one thing happens that says everything. She cries, slowly, silently, and in that one moment, the pain, love, and memory of a whole lifetime come rushing out. Amy's tears aren't just sadness, they're a symbol, a message, a release. 4 seasons now, we've seen Amy holding it together. After Ty died, she broke down, yes, but only in pieces. A few tears here, a shaky voice there. But she always pulled herself back. For Lindy, for her family, for herself. She became stronger, more private with her grief. She learned to function without Ty, how to smile, without meaning it. How to carry on with the weight still sitting quietly in her chest. But this moment. This was different. The way she looks at Ty, her face softening, her lips trembling, feels like the wall she built around her heart suddenly cracked. And in that crack, all the emotions she buried finally poured out. The tears aren't dramatic. They're quiet, controlled, almost peaceful. And that's why they're powerful. Because they don't just show loss. They show recognition. Amy isn't crying because she's scared. She's crying because for a second, it felt like he was really there. Like her heart recognized something her mind couldn't explain. And what's even more interesting is when those tears come. They don't fall right away. At first, she just stares. Frozen, in awe, like she's not sure if what she's seeing is real. And then, when Ty disappears, that's when she breaks. That tiny delay says so much. It tells us she was holding on to the moment, even if it only lasted seconds. She didn't want to let go. And when he vanished, it was like losing him all over again. The emotion in her face is layered. There's love, deep love. There's also regret, maybe for the things left unsaid, maybe for the moments stolen by time. And then there's acceptance. Not full acceptance, maybe, but a step toward it. A kind of understanding that Ty's gone, but not gone. Not really. He still lives in her, in memory, in spirit, in their daughter. This scene also shows how much Amy has changed. The Amy we met in season 1 was young, brave, but guarded. Over the years, she opened up, especially with Ty. She let herself love, and after his death, she went through one of the hardest transformations a person can go through. Rebuilding without the person who helped you become who you are. Asterisk, these tears show that she's still on that journey. She's still growing, still healing, and maybe finally she's beginning to let herself feel everything again. Not just the pain, but also the joy of remembering. Asterisk asterisk. The show's writers didn't give Amy a big speech in this scene. No long lines. No explanation, and that was the right choice. Because sometimes, grief speaks louder in silence. A single tear can carry more meaning than 100 words. Asterisk, Amber Marshall, who plays Amy, deserves credit here too. Her performance is subtle but deep. You can tell she understands Amy's pain not just as an actress, but as someone who's lived with this character for years. She lets the emotion come through naturally. Nothing feels forced. And that makes it even more real. Asterisk, from a storytelling point of view, this scene also sends a message to the audience. It tells us that even though Ty is gone, his story isn't finished. He's still a part of Amy's world. And every now and then, he might show up not in body, but in emotion, in memory, in the tears that fall when you least expect them. Asterisk, these kinds of scenes remind us why Heartland continues to connect with viewers. It doesn't rush healing. It doesn't pretend that grief disappears. It shows the slow, painful, beautiful process of moving forward while still holding on. Asterisk, in the next section, we'll focus on the moment that truly surprised everyone. Lindy's reaction. A child's response to seeing or sensing something she doesn't fully understand. But maybe, just maybe, she understands more than anyone else. While Amy's tears spoke volumes, it was Lindy's reaction that added something truly unexpected and unforgettable to Ty's brief return. Children see the world differently. They don't question moments the way adults do. They feel, they sense, and sometimes, they just know. That's exactly what happened in this scene. And it's what makes it so powerful. Asterisk, right after Ty disappears, and Amy is left wiping her tears, Lindy comes into the frame. She's holding a drawing, a crayon sketch of their family. And what's striking is this. Ty is in the picture. Not just as a vague figure, but clearly drawn, standing beside Amy, holding Lindy's hand, as if he'd never left. Asterisk, Amy sees the drawing. She doesn't say anything at first, but her hands shake a little, her eyes widened, and that silence speaks volumes. It's not just surprise, it's recognition. Somehow, Lindy saw him too. Asterisk, now, there are several ways to interpret this moment. The simplest explanation is coincidence. Maybe Lindy draws Ty sometimes. Maybe it's just a child remembering her dad. But the timing makes it feel like something more. She didn't draw this picture yesterday or last week. She brings it out right after Amy sees Ty. It feels connected. It feels spiritual. Asterisk, some fans believe this moment shows that Lindy has a deeper connection to her father than we ever realized. She may be young, but she grew up with his memory all around her. Stories, photos, feelings, and sometimes, children pick up on emotions even when no one tells them what's happening. Maybe Lindy didn't see Ty with her eyes, but she felt him. And maybe that's what made her draw him that morning. Asterisk, there's also a quiet moment between Lindy and Amy that stands out. Lindy looks up at her mom and says something simple, like, "Daddy was smiling." Just those 3 words. Calm, innocent, but deeply moving. Amy doesn't answer right away. Her voice cracks. She finally manages to whisper, "Yes, he was." Asterisk, this brief exchange captures the emotional heart of the episode. It's about connection between mother and daughter, between the past and the present, between the living and the lost. It's also about how grief changes shape. For Amy, grief has been heavy and full of silence. For Lindy, it's softer, more open, less afraid, maybe even comforting. Asterisk, and that's where the spiritual side of this scene becomes so meaningful. Heartland has always respected nature, animals, and emotional energy. It's not a fantasy show, but it does allow room for things we can't always explain. This scene lets us believe, just for a moment, that Ty's love is still moving through the people he left behind. Asterisk, Lindy's reaction adds depth because it's pure. She's not burdened by logic or doubt. She doesn't wonder if it was a dream, or a ghost, or a memory. She just knows her daddy was close, and that he was happy. That's enough for her. And in a way, it becomes enough for Amy, too. Asterisk, there's a beautiful balance here. Amy, the adult, is broken by the moment. Lindy, the child, is healed by it. And that reversal says a lot about how grief works. Sometimes, the people we think we're protecting the children are the ones quietly holding us together. Asterisk, from a storytelling perspective, Lindy's role is growing. She's not just Amy's daughter anymore. She's becoming a mirror of the past, a symbol of hope, and possibly a guide through the emotional layers of this new season. Her connection to Ty might become even more important as season 19 unfolds. So, what does this all mean moving forward? It tells us that Ty's presence isn't completely gone from Heartland. His return in this episode may not be physical, but it's deeply emotional, and it's just as powerful. Through Amy's tears and Lindy's innocent wisdom, we see that love doesn't die, it transforms. It lingers in memories, in dreams, in sketches drawn by small hands, and sometimes, it returns just long enough to remind us that it never really left. Ty Borden's brief return in season 19. Episode 1 has stirred emotions, sparked theories, and reopened old wounds, but it also raises a bigger question: where is Heartland going from here? After so many seasons of rebuilding after Ty's death, his reappearance, whether spiritual, emotional, or symbolic, signals a shift. This isn't just a nostalgic moment. It's a message from the writers. Ty's story still matters, and if it still matters, it might still be shaping the future of this family. Let's begin with Amy. This episode shows she hasn't fully moved on, and maybe she never will. And that's okay. Her moment with Ty and her emotional breakdown prove that grief doesn't end, it just changes. For Amy, this might be the beginning of a new phase in her journey, one where she starts to not only remember Ty, but also reconnect with him in a deeper way through dreams, feelings, or memories that guide her. She may begin to talk about him more openly with Lindy, or revisit old places that meant something to them. This season could lean into emotional closure, not as an end, but as a rebirth of how Amy carries Ty's love forward. Then there's Lindy, who might now take on a more spiritual role in the story. Her drawing of Ty, her calm words, her connection to his presence. These aren't just cute child moments, they're carefully written to show that Lindy has an intuitive bond with her father. As she grows up, this bond may deepen. Perhaps she dreams of him too. Perhaps she hears stories from Amy and begins to ask more questions. Or maybe, she becomes the bridge between past and future, the living legacy of Ty and Amy's love. This opens the door to a bigger theme: legacy. Heartland has always been about family, and family is built on those who came before. Even though Ty is gone, his values, his love for animals, and his deep compassion could live on through Lindy. We might see her working more with horses, or standing up for others, like Ty used to. The writers might slowly shape her as a reflection of him. Not as a copy, but as a continuation. A spark of who he was, moving into a new generation. On a narrative level, this scene also allows the writers more creative space. Until now, Ty's story felt like it had ended, but now, it can be revisited in quiet ways. More flashbacks, letters, videos he left behind. Maybe Amy finds something he recorded for Lindy. Maybe we learn things we never knew, things that change how the characters see him. This opens room for emotional subplots that give Ty a continued presence without rewriting the past. But what about the fans? What does Ty's return mean to the audience? In one word, hope. Not just the hope that Ty might come back physically, because that's unlikely, but the hope that love never truly dies. For viewers who were devastated when Ty died, this moment feels like a small gift, a way to say, he's still here, just in a different way. It validates our own feelings of loss, our own memories. Because when someone you love passes, you don't stop feeling them, you just learn to live with their echo. This shift also sets the tone for the rest of season 19. We can expect a season that is emotionally rich, more reflective, and centered on healing in new ways. Less about moving and more about moving forward while still looking back. Amy may take bolder steps toward personal growth. Lindy may begin asking deeper questions, and the rest of the family, Tim, may start sharing more about their own memories of Ty, bringing the past into the present. There's also the question of whether we'll see Ty again, and while the show likely won't undo his death, we may see more spiritual visits, visual metaphors, or dreamlike moments. These will probably be subtle and respectful, unoverused, but enough to remind us that his presence is woven into the story's soul, and maybe that's the point. Ty doesn't need to be alive to live on. He exists in Amy's strength, in Lindy's spirit, in the quiet of the barn, in the wildness of the horses, and in the hearts of the fans who've followed his journey from the very beginning. Asterisk, so what does this all mean for the future of Heartland? Asterisk, it means we're not just watching a show about horses and family. We're watching a show about memory, about grief, about how love, even after death, continues to guide, shape, and transform. Asterisk Heartland, Season 19 isn't just a new chapter, a return. Not two old stories, but two old feelings. Feelings that never really left us. Just like Ty. Asterisk asterisk,